The control room got a phone call which was from a female who stated that her partner had threatened to slit her throat. And her next words were, "I'm on a boat 12 miles off Dungeness." How do you get police officers out to sea? There was information suggesting a vessel was going to be coming over from the continent in the English Channel. We needed to take the firearms officers to sea and put them on the boat at a location. You've done something that could protect someone or stop something really bad happening later on. We do a lot of body recoveries. We go to a lot of these warrants where we're breaking up families. That does have an emotional effect on you regardless. A DVI incident, where something's happened and we're having to pick bits of people up and stuff. It's not nice. But as a team, we are very good at being able to recognise when someone's not right. I'm going to go straight into an example actually, and it's quite one that still a little bit raw. We've got a team of people and they all love this guy. He loves us. I'm so proud of the team and Aid. Sorry, get me a bit emotional, but that bond is far bigger than you think you're ever going to create. So you become emotionally invested in other people's lives.
Welcome to More Than the Badge, a Kent Police podcast. My name is Acting Sergeant Mark Allen and I will be your host. Today's episode is with PC Sam Milton from the Search and Marine Unit. Welcome to the podcast, Sam.
Thank you for having me.
Can you tell us about your background and how you got into policing?
Yeah, so I didn't always want to be a police officer at the time. It wasn't something that crossed my mind. So at school, suffer from dyslexia. So I found school quite difficult. So growing up, I was almost ruling a lot of jobs out in my head and thinking what I could do. In fact, I remember careers day where they basically said, and this is no disrespect to anyone that's in that career, but they were like, what about joining the infantry? And as a job, so that's where the school was pitching me at the time, saying this is what you should go and do, more of a practical job. Yeah. But I ended up sort of grinding through it, I guess, and then got there. And then when I started exams, I got some extra help. And that enabled me then to go on to university. And at university, I thought, well, actually, I did a business degree and I was able to get quite a decent grade out of it. But I thought, actually, I quite like to do something practical. And then I thought policing would be practical. Yeah. And then I ended up applying for the police, but started as a PCSO. And then later joined as a police officer.
Okay. So how many years service have you
got? 15 as a police officer and 3.5 as a PCSO.
Okay. So you came into the job with dyslexia. Yeah. How has that impacted you in your role as a police officer?
Well, it's kind of twofold, actually, because if you look at me, it initially affected me, and it can be quite emotional as well, because simple things. Police officers have to take statements. Everyone knows that police officers have to take statements. But for me, it was kind of about the time when laptops weren't really fully around. So I'd go and write a statement, and I just remember this one. It's so annoying every time I think about it. But it was a burglary, and so burglars had been and gone. It was taking a statement, a victim statement, and it was from an ex-head teacher. Okay. And so I hand wrote this statement out, and she read it back, and she was like, "That's brilliant." And she literally got a pen out that happened to be red. And she pretty much was marking off everything that was wrong and was like, well, maybe you want to change this. And I was so, I guess, mortified because I thought, for me, it was a realisation that dyslexia actually is a boundary. But then I needed to know that I needed to get around it. So then that's when I looked at laptops. Yeah. And then the second part was, in my career, I've always stick to more practical jobs. And I went on to what they call a DSU, Divisional Support Unit, which is a tactical team, basically, local area tactical team. That team then sort of works the whole of an area. Yeah. And what I was seeing is quite a lot of people, but I was quite open about being dyslexic. I don't like hiding it. And so people were coming to me basically saying that they were having problems. So actually, I was then sort of representing people that I thought I was the only one. You think you're the only one who's got problems with dyslexia, but actually there was loads. And so that was quite a good thing to identify that.
Okay. And has the job supported you and helped you? You talked about laptops, but how has the Kent Police helped you with managing your dyslexia?
Yeah, so they've now got assessors on area, which I've now become an assessor, dyslexic assessor. So that enables trying to identify people who have got neurodiversity
Yeah.
issues or dyslexia
Yeah.
at an early stage or at a later stage, because some people go through all their lives and not even know that they are dyslexic,
Yeah.
but have always thought something's not quite right. So now this is a way of like trying to get a bit of intervention and also coming up with ways of helping those people. So I think it's a really positive step. They never used to have it. It's something they've invested in. I think it can only be a good thing, really.
Yeah. No, I think you're right. And it shows that having, for example, in your case, dyslexia is not a bar to joining the police. And in fact, there is help and support for officers who either come knowing they have, for example, dyslexia or indeed other learning differences, or find out when indeed they're in the job. And quite clearly that has helped you in your career to date, 15 years?
Yeah.
And you mentioned...
Well, I've not been sacked yet.
Well, good. And long may that continue. So you said you joined initially as a PCSO.
Yeah.
And then, so what got you into the job, and what have you done, different roles within the job?
So I didn't initially apply to be a PCSO. It was... at the time, and again, things are moving on, but at the time I went through the process. So I basically came here to Kent Police College, and I was sat in with 200 other people looking at a presentation of becoming a police officer. Mm-hmm. And they were giving you a briefing of what was next, that there was an assessment centre. And in that, they were like, right, if everyone's ready, you can go, unless there's a Sam Milton here. Could they stay at the end? So I'm sitting there thinking, oh my God, it's like I'm not even a police officer yet, but I'm being people already calling my name out. What have I done? And then what I found out was that there's a 5 spelling mistake at that time. So if you got 5 spelling mistakes wrong, it was like an automatic that's it type thing, and it's just how it was. So I ended up doing the exams and I ended up failing it, but they offered me the job as a PCSO. And then after that, which I had PCSO is a fantastic job, and I had a really good career. Worked in Canterbury. You actually generally felt like you were able to make a difference. Yeah. That particular time in my life, I thought I made probably a lot more difference than I probably have now. Yeah. It was really interesting. Yeah. But then I went on to go and redo the exam, and that rule had gone. So I was then able to progress. Yeah. And get to where I am now.
Excellent. And now you're in the Search and Marine Unit.
I am.
So tell us about your role as an officer on the Search and Marine Unit.
So Search and Marine Unit is an interesting role. It's got multiple different functions. If you are looking at joining the police now and you're doing your research, you might see something called JESSUP, which is the Joint Emergency Services Interoperability Program. So basically what that is, if you went to a car crash, you would get loads of different organisations turn up, like fire, police, and ambulance. And it's all about working together. Yeah. Our team, the Search and Marine Unit, is probably, or does the most JESSUP stuff out of all of Kent Police. So a lot of our training is underpinned by outside agencies. So the Fire Brigade, they underpin our confined space training, which we have to be trained in. The Heart team, which is like a tactical version of the ambulance, they underpin our swift water training, which is basically going up to a kayak centre and being able to swim and self-recover from like the Olympic course. Okay. And the Coast Guard underpin our mud training. So we're constantly working with partner agencies, and when a job comes in, sadly our team do have to recover a lot of deceased people from hazardous locations, including water. Yeah. Then we don't just go by ourselves, we get the other agencies and we come together and we use our strengths to be able to go and achieve that goal and ultimately bring that person back for their families or whatever needs to be done. So with regards to that, it's really interesting because you get to see what the other organisations do and what they can bring to the table. Yeah. So that's a part of it. So the marine side that we're responsible for marine policing on inland waters and external waters. Yeah. So the coastline. We've got a cabin rib, which we use to patrol that, and some smaller boats, which we use to patrol the inshore waters. Some of the things that we've done, we've gone from just general neighbourhood policing and speaking to people to high-end level, putting firearms onto a boat with helicopters above us for a live job in the middle of the night. So that's kind of the range of stuff that you get. But the team not only does the marine side, but also a search team. Search and marine does go hand in hand. Obviously, when you're searching for someone in the water, then that goes together. But there is a separate search side. So we're all what we call licensed search officers. Okay. That's a national qualification to make sure that you're basically to the level of looking for a SIM car in a engine block. That's the kind of level that you're looking at. And you have to be licensed, and you have to do so many searches a year. So it's quite intense. With regards to that side, we get involved in quite a lot of big operations. So if any major searches, if any politicians come down, then we will do the searching for all of that area. But the team also does other stuff as well. So we do part of the search, we do what we call POLIT warrants. So POLIT is the Paedophile Online Investigation Team. So they basically are looking for people online who are potentially chatting to young children with the intention of sexually exploiting them. We then go and do the searches when the warrant is executed, which is quite an interesting thing because the detectives will come with us. They arrest them and they're taken away. We're left with the families of... It is difficult because you're left with a family, like a wife, children, who you've just now found out that their partners, husbands have just been arrested for an offence of potentially being in possession of indecent images of children. That's a devastating thing for that family. And we've done many jobs in the search world where we've gone, and it kind of, not that you kind of feel like you're taking a bit of their pain each time, because you go in there, and ultimately, I was talking about this the other day, we were outside a job and we were just saying, as soon as we walk through that door, that family's life's going to change instantly. And then so you kind of not feel responsible because potentially, there's an investigation. So not saying that someone's done it or hasn't done it until it's concluded. But ultimately, you kind of feel like your actions going in there is going to cause that family to split. But then actually, is it the person who's done that has caused us a chain reaction that was going to happen anyway? It doesn't matter who goes to it. Someone's got to go. So with the marine unit, so we do the marine side, the search side, but we're also responsible for things for like DVI, which is disaster victim identification. So the team were deployed to Shoreham for the plane crash there, ultimately to try and help identify people who were involved so that the families know, and a little bit of closure maybe, and also part of the investigation. We've also got responsibilities for CBRN, so the old hazmat suits and stuff like that, working at heights, and it is endless. It just I feel like I'm training all the time, but it is really interesting. So that's kind of a whistle-stop tour of what it is like on what we do, what we're responsible for.
Well, I mean, for a 3-word team, Search and Marine Unit, it's far more than perhaps it says on the tin. And like you say, there's a lot of training that gets involved, and you touch a whole variety of different areas of policing. And the point you raised about the search, I think perhaps sometimes if you say, I'm part of a search team, or I've searching a property or premises or whatever it might be, the assumption, as you quite rightly say, is that it's empty, and there you are as a police officer respectfully going and searching, looking for evidence relating to the offence. But actually there are families linked to the people that have been arrested, and in the examples you gave, quite clearly are there at the time when this whole process is taking place, and their world has been turned upside down.
Ultimately, my job is to look for evidence that will either prove or disprove that offence. That is my goal. But the extra elements you have of that is that family that you're trying to manage. So you're going through their possessions, through their house after they've just been told this information, and you can see it, and a lot of the time there is that, well, he wouldn't do that, or she wouldn't do that, and you're just trying to manage them in the sense of you need to be open-minded because you just don't know. You need to find out what's going on first. But yeah, it's the kids is hard as well. So one thing our team is really, really good at is the ability to be able to sort of team welfare, I guess. So like I said earlier, we do a lot of body recoveries. We go to a lot of these warrants where we're breaking up families. That does have an emotional effect on you regardless. A DVI incident, where something's happened and we're having to pick bits of people up and stuff. It's not nice. But as a team, we are very good at being able to recognise when someone's not right. And even if it's just a case of going down the local pub and just even having a shandy with a packet of crisps and just talking it over, that release, and that is so important. Really, really important. And that's one thing our team has had to develop because of the stuff that we do.
Yeah.
And because it's so often. If it was a one-off here and there, yeah, that I guess. But one thing you've got to be careful of as well is that because you're doing so many of these jobs that you don't become desensitized. You need to, and talking about it makes you not do that, because then you're reflecting on things and trying to feel human again without trying to bottle it up.
Yeah.
So
no, you're right. And we know, and I am talking on your behalf, so tell me if I'm not saying it how it is, but being a police officer is a privilege, what we do. But we do see a lot of things that members of the public hopefully won't ever see, or a small percentage of them do. But we're still human. So yes, today we're sitting here in our uniform, but we are still the same person in or out of uniform, and dealing with the variety of incidents that we do, and in your job in particular with the examples that you gave, we're still human and we still feel. And that empathy that you talk about is really important as a police officer. But it's also understanding how to manage other people's emotions, and you will collect those emotions as you police in the practice that we do, and how we manage that. And you've just given an example of how your team, for example,
we can never say no, especially in our team, because some of the jobs that we have to do, there's no other police officer that can do that. So we can't turn around and say, no, we can't do that. So we do it, but it's how you manage yourselves after. Yeah. And that's the important thing. And that's what we're good at.
Yeah. Given what you've just spoken about, or your career to date, tell us about some of the more memorable policing operations that you've been involved in.
So I talked about the firearms job. So that was a job that I can't give specific details, too many details, but ultimately there was information suggesting a vessel was going to be coming over from the continent in the English Channel. There were suggestions that there was going to be Class A or a number of drugs on that vessel, and potentially there could be firearms. So you're talking about high-end level. So we got called as a team almost to be a bit of a backup. So when that vessel lands, that we're there just in case it all goes wrong. This then turned out to be a 36-hour shift. It was a long old night, day. Yes. I can't even remember what time we started and what time we finished. It was all a blur. But what did happen in the end, and this is policing all over, things change. So the scenario then dictated that we needed to take the firearms officers to sea and put them on the boat at a location. Now, you can't just go out and drive a police boat. Right. This is years and years of training, exams, to be able to get to that point of being what we call skipper of the boat, not a police sergeant, right? What you call a commercially endorsed skipper. So in the marine world, so that means you're responsible for the boat. You're responsible for everyone's safety, and you could be prosecuted if you've done something wrong. You could be held to account. So that put all of those skills to the test, because we were in locations that it wasn't in Kent. We were supporting someone else. The area that was charted. So if you think of a sat nav, I guess, and you can see how the roads are laid out. Yeah. So on our boat, we have what we call a chart system, which is on a computer screen. The information that what was showing on our chart screen with the depths of the water, so we know if it's safe or not, was not what was the reality was there. Oh, okay. So we were blind, completely blind, to the point that my colleague was having to wear night vision goggles to be able to make sure that we weren't going to run aground. Right. It was quite up there.
Yeah.
And in the end, we then struck the vessel at sea with a police helicopter above, and the people didn't even know that we were on there until they were on there.
Nice work.
So for me, you build up as on the Marine unit to be able to do that. And then for the job to come in to be able to do that,
Yes.
it's like, wow, okay, well, this is what we trained for. Yes, it was a 36-hour shift. Yes, we were under pressure, but ultimately people were arrested and the job was done.
Yes.
When I now look back of that day, I told you that I was sat there watching a video of what it's like to be a police officer. I feel like I was looking at myself then. You know, it was that. It's quite emotional. It's good because you feel like you're doing a good thing and you've worked hard to do that.
Yeah.
But some of the other stuff that I talked about, we do a lot of joint working.
Mm-hmm.
Pre-Brexit, we did a lot of government backed operations, which were to do with working with the military, with Border Force. And we were down in Plymouth, I think it was, and then one down in Poole Way. And we were basically looking at joint working where we were putting military personnel and police officers onto vessels that were not playing ball, basically. So it was a bit hostile. We had a Wildcat helicopter. I guess I'll be corrected if someone's in the military and saying they don't use Wildcat helicopters, but there was a Wildcat helicopter above, had a military naval vessel to the side, one side. There was a Border Force cutter, which looks like a mini warship. All of that with ourselves, a load of 19-year-old Marines that were just fit and didn't care about jumping off boats and stuff like that, or climbing ladders quicker than we can. And it was just amazing. And it was that, knowing that you're part of something that the government's backed to obviously prepare if something was to happen, you felt that you were doing something that was really interesting. And if something did go off, like the firearms job I talked about earlier, you're prepared and you know what to do, and you can work with other agencies. So yeah, that's two things.
Okay.
Quite interesting.
You've spoken about the variety of jobs that your team undertake and how that cuts across all various different areas of policing. And we touched on emotion, we touched on empathy. So there will be examples in policing in your career, as indeed in my career, where we deal with people and emotion. So as a police officer, you, Sam, how do you deal with the more emotional parts of this job?
So I'm going to go straight into an example, actually, and it's quite one that is still a little bit raw for me. But so, and his wife will not mind me talking about him because I've written a blog about him. But a guy on my team called Adrian Denman, he was a solid member of the Search and Marine unit. He'd been there for ages. He was someone that you would look up to. Yeah. If there was a job going on or something, you would ask him and he'd know. He was really incredible. In fact, we needed some communication sets for the boat. We looked into buying them and they were like 10 grand. He went and made them in his garage. He's like that type of person that is just good and solid, loyal, and all about the job and all about you as newbies, as I was then, succeeding. He got diagnosed with throat cancer. Right. And which was the same time as pretty much as my mum got diagnosed with breast cancer. So it was quite an emotion. So he got a lot of emotions going on at that time. And yeah, so he went on his journey with the cancer, and he had some good times and some bad times, and eventually he ended up passing away. And the reason I'm talking about this is because there is a lot of emotions in police officers. If you're joining thinking you're just going to be a police officer, you're not. You're joining a family. You're joining a team that actually that bond is far bigger than you think you're ever going to create. So you become emotionally invested in other people's lives because you do. It's just what happens. You probably see these people more than you see your family. It's actually that intense, I guess. And so at that time, I was looking at promotion. And I was given the opportunity to be the acting sergeant whilst my current sergeant had left and retired, and until they got someone new in. This time period fell over Adrian's last couple of months. It was quite difficult time, I guess, because you've got a team of people and they all love this guy. He loves us. It's just, it's just proper love between everyone. And he knows that it's going one way. We know it's going one way. Yeah. And as a team, we've still got to perform. We've still got to be able to do stuff. We've still got to be able to function. We've still got to be able to go and do our job if we're called.
Yeah.
So you're balancing the person's needs, the team's needs, and the public's needs, all between 9 officers. So for me, it was like people wanted to see Aid before he passed away. And the talk was whether it was going to be like an individual thing. And what we decided as a team was that we would go to his house as a team. Yeah. And we'd have a good time. And we went there, and his wife, Sharon, she made a load of bacon sarnies. We sat down. I used myself as the butt of the jokes a few times because, you want to lift the spirits. And it was an amazing thing. Yeah. Everyone had such a good time, as much as you can. Yeah. And it was a way of really breaking that ice because people were nervous about going to see him. And I was nervous about going to see him. Yeah. But I knew he wanted to see us. Yeah. So it was like, okay, let's do this. And we went there and we had a really good time. And then I saw him about 2 days before he passed away. And like I said earlier, when you join the police, it's not just being a police officer. You get emotionally involved in the team because situations happen, not just this. Something could happen on area or your team where people get involved and it causes a lot of chaos, a lot of emotions, a lot of trauma, and you have to deal with that. And this was really hard for me. Like, it was really difficult, and it didn't help having the mum thing going on at the same time. Yeah. But that's where I'll go back to talking about team welfare. As a team, we were very good at doing that, and that was tested, massively tested, that we all stuck together and we were all functioning properly, being able to do stuff. And I think it brings out some characteristics that you didn't even realise you had. Like, resilience is always on, like the thing that you need as a police officer. Yeah. But it never tells you how much resilience. No. That resilience probably for me was up to like 1,000 on that scale. It was really testing. And then you've got to go home and be with your family and not act normal, but you've got to manage and function. Yeah. And so that for me was quite a difficult thing, difficult time. But as a team, I was so proud of the team and Aid. Yeah. So it get me a bit emotional. But it was hard. And funny enough, that's the second time that's happened to me on my team on the divisional sport unit. Yeah. Another colleague that I was very close to passed away with cancer as well at the same time. And again, we did the same thing with him, but although he was in hospital this time, it was a lot quicker. Yeah. But if you're watching this now thinking, I want to join a police officer, you need to be aware that there is these extra things. It's not just about chasing criminals. It's not about doing this. There's more to it, a lot more than you're ever going to think there is. Yeah. And you need to be prepared to go on that roller coaster journey. And I'm not saying don't do it, or the opposite. Yeah. I'm saying this will shape your life in ways that you never thought it could be shaped. And thank you for sharing that. And it puts you back in that experience, but it shows also you as a person, and your strengths, and like you say, the stuff that you didn't know that you had or that was there but actually is, and it's another example of the complexity of this career and the experiences we have and what we draw upon, and now, sadly, but nevertheless, you have those experiences that you can now share with others. You're doing it now through this podcast to help people who may well, and we have to face facts, may well find themselves in similar situations, i.e. working with colleagues or dealing with people who are very, very unwell. In this podcast, you've spoken about what you do in the Search and Marine Unit, some of the bigger operations that you've been on, some of the neighbourhood related roles that you undertake. But it's very difficult potentially to ask this, but I'm going to do it anyway, in terms of a typical day. So on an average day in the Search and Marine Unit, what would you get up to? So the average day would be, you would have a team of roughly 9, I'd say. So some of those would go out on the boat doing things from community-based stuff to, if a job comes in, high-end stuff. And then you would get some officers that would go out and do your polits, your paedophile and line investigation warrants. So that's your average day. Extra stuff that we get called in would be if there's a missing person, they're believed to be in water, or someone's sadly decided to take their own life, and they're in an area that needs us to go and be able to do that, whether it's using ropes, whether it's using water capabilities, whether it's using the boat, whether it's just needs a team that can just get it done, then that's what we would be called. We also use for general policing. So part of our job is we're still police officers, and that's one thing that we're very aware that we are. Yeah. So we will go onto areas and we will link in with the domestic abuse teams, the rape teams, and say, have you got anyone that's causing you problems that you need to get in? And we'll go out and we'll go find them, and we'll bring them in. Because ultimately they're the people that are causing the most harm. They call them red offenders. So anyone who is at high risk that needs to be brought in, we will go and put ourselves, self-deploy to go and look for them people.
So you talked about community policing. Now, if we were to say community policing to someone, we might get answers back. So what's community policing? Well, officers out, walking around, engaging with the public, talking to people, stopping cars, issuing safety advice, dealing with antisocial behaviour. What does community policing look like done on a river?
So, not just the river, on the sea as well, I guess. So community policing, in my opinion of being a PCSO as well, is all about talking and engaging with people. And it doesn't matter whether you're walking around, it doesn't matter whether you're in a car. A boat's a boat. It just means we're on a different mode of transport. But ultimately, what the key objectives of that are to try and find... Well, the key objectives for me is gaining intelligence about possible organised gangs that are causing some serious harm, bringing trust into the community. So showing that we were there was a spate of engines that had been stolen from marinas, and they just wanted to see people there. So we were there, we were trying to find out who's doing it. But the other thing is, you've got a lot of people that tourists that are coming into the country. So if you came into the country now, like through an airplane or a ferry, you'd have to go through passport control, you'd have to go through this. You could sail a boat from France or Belgium into a marina without even probably seeing the law enforcement. So part of our community engagement is going and speaking and finding out who's been coming in, what's been going on, is there anything suspicious, and even jumping on those boats and going and speaking to people and working out what's going on. I think it's all about gaining trust, gaining intelligence, and just being that, I don't know, flag bearer sometimes, that people see you and know you're there, so they feel a bit more secure. So it's just normal for us. I can't make it too Gucci, really. It is policing, but using what everyone else is doing, but we're doing it on the water.
What do you find most rewarding then about your job?
That's a good question. I think let's put aside the marine stuff, going back to the polit warrants, you're targeting people and doing warrants and arresting people who are picking on the most vulnerable, children. And for me, when we've done that job, and then later on it comes, they've downloaded phones and the information was correct, then you've done a good thing. That person is now off the streets, or certainly now on the radar. Which kind of makes you feel that you've done something that could protect someone or stop something really bad happening later on. So for me, I think the polit stuff is amazing.
So what sorts of examples of policing incidents have you dealt with on the water?
I've referred to earlier that we are still police officers, and we still just because we're driving around in the boat and stuff doesn't change anything. But I remember one incident, one call. We actually got called in. It was our day off. It was Mother's Day, so I was really flavour of the month. And it was the control room got a phone call, which was from a female who stated that her partner had threatened to slit her throat. So That's the scenario. So obviously that was then assessed, and her next words were, "I'm on a boat 12 miles off Dungeness." So the force incident manager was probably like, "Oh, how do I deal with this? Because this is not normal. This is something that would be once in 10 years or something like that. It's not a common job. So how do you get police officers out to sea?" So we got a phone call and said, how are we going to be able to deal with this? So we looked at the weather. Weather was absolutely terrible. It wasn't nice at all. Our boat was based around, at that time, was at the north of the county. For us to then rush to the boat, bring the boat all the way around to Dungeness, thinking about the distance and fuel, it would have taken hours.
Yeah.
So again, going back to our Jessup principles, so joint working, we rushed into work, got our marine kit, we blue lighted it all the way down to Folkestone. They had a border force, have a huge presence down on the south coast at the moment. And they had a cutter available, which is a mini warship. And off the back of that is a little rib. So the little rib came off, picked us up from Folkestone Harbour. We went out onto the cutter, and we then proceeded to go look for this fishing boat that was approximately 11 to 12 miles off Dungeness. So there is a limit to the UK's territorial waters before it becomes French.
Right.
So there was a bit of an urgency to get there, because as soon as it goes over to the French side, then it's out of our jurisdiction, and we would need to get French authorities to be able to deal. But you got to remember, there's someone who's called through saying that they feel that their partner, who happened to be the captain of the boat, and it wasn't a small one, it was a relatively big fishing vessel, is saying, "Oh, I'm in danger here. I need help. How are you going to help me?" So we're on that cutter. As a team, we're quite well trained, really well trained in being able to board vessels. Now, we didn't have our kit there, our boat. So we were at the direction of the skipper of the border force boat. He deemed that at that time it would be too risky to launch the smaller vessel to then go and do an interdiction at sea. Okay. For us, we would have done it.
Yes.
But we were under their rules. It was their risk that they were doing. So we used policing powers to be able to divert that vessel back to Dover. And it probably worked out quite well that Border Force were there, because they were probably thinking it was to do with drugs and actually not about the female. Yeah. So that gave us a bit of time. That then took 2 hours to get back. So whilst we're there, we're constantly watching, making sure that no one's thrown over or anything like that, so that we've got that safeguarding. And then when that vessel was secured and the vessel was in Dover, we went on and we straight away arrested the captain, and then did a search looking for the female and to make sure that we can protect her. Yeah. And for me, it was quite an important one, because it shows people, it doesn't matter where you are, we can get to you, and we will try and protect you. Because that person who called up they felt in danger, but they knew they were miles away from land. Yeah. And it's not something you can drive a police car up to. No. You've got a big ocean, big sea in front of you. So that was a challenging job, but it showed that joint working, because Border Force can't go out and arrest for domestic offences, that's not their remit, and they don't have the powers to do it. They had the ability to get out there, and we had the power. So it was working together to be able to solve that and protect that person.
Great. Good result.
Yeah.
In that example, you alluded to Mother's Day.
Yeah.
And missing that. And as police officers, as part of the job, we will miss Mother's Day, Father's Day, some birthdays, Christmases, other engagements, other events. The day you don't want to get off late, you're going to get off late. It comes as part of the job. How do you balance home life then and work life?
It's a good one, because our team, we go away a lot. So because of our skill sets, sometimes we're used nationally for jobs, which means that we have to go away. And I remember that for COP26, which was in Edinburgh, Glasgow, we had to go up there for 3 weeks doing work, and to try and explain that to my wife was quite difficult. It is hard, because I could be at work 8 till 4, and at 3 o'clock a job comes in, and that could be ranging from someone in the water, which no one else can go to someone stuck at height, to anything that it's only our team that can do. So there's a responsibility for us that you've got to stay on. And it is hard, and you do have to manage emotions of families. but ultimately you gotta, you're doing it for the right reasons.
Yeah.
And I think it's very hard for partners, family to not realise that you're doing it. May get in the ear a bit, but but ultimately you are doing it for the right reasons. It's not like you're just going off having fun. There is a real purpose to. So I think it is something you do need to think about when joining the police, managing that. And it is maybe something that you need to have a conversation with your family and say, look, this does happen. How is that going to affect our lives? You know, if you've got children, that's a huge factor.
It is.
The team are flexible, and the job is flexible. If you generally can't stay there, and there's a real reason, there is always someone else on the team or something that you can work it out. But it is something you need to think about.
Being a police officer comes with a huge amount of responsibility, and that responsibility doesn't end at the time your shift finishes, does it? You are a police officer online, offline, on duty, off duty. That you can't choose not to be a police officer. When you're off duty, you will be expected to intervene or get involved in incidents, but therefore that responsibility does have ripples into family life, and you're right, it's important to have those open and honest conversations about the impact that this job has on us and therefore on our families. And it is a challenging balance, but you're right, the job, the force, recognises that, and where ever possible will be flexible and allow time off or to make something work. Because if they provide us time, then they will really get the best out of us.
Chocolates and flowers always used to work. When you have kids, they no longer work.
No, very, very true. Very true. That's a whole podcast in itself, but I think we probably should move on. I'm a police officer. I'm not on Search and Marine Unit. If I wanted to join the Search and Marine Unit, what sort of training would I have to undergo? Obviously, there'll be an application process. I absolutely get that. Yeah. But to operate in your unit, what sort of training would an officer have to undertake?
So we're quite lucky. We're quite heavily skilled, and training is always ongoing. The main sort of elements you're looking at, if we start with the marine side, the goal is to build up to being a commercial indoor skipper, so in the commercial world.
And would all of you do that?
Yes, right. Yeah. So everyone who joins aspires to do that, and that could take up to 4 years,
right?
4 or 5 years to be able to get to that level, because it's not like the courses that you would have in civvy world. This is, like I said earlier, putting firearms onto boats. This is bringing your vessel alongside moving huge vessels, that are massive waves. There's a real element of risk and manageable danger, I guess the best word of calling. So you need to be confident that you can do that in your abilities. So there's a lot of marine training that you need to do. A lot of that is in-house. A lot of it is external. With regards to the search, you need to become a licensed search officer. So that is a national course run by the College of Policing and the military. So it's quite an interesting course. One of the best courses I think I did. And again, that is looking for SIM cards in engine bay level. And then we have all the extra stuff that we do. So like disaster victim identification. We have working at heights. We have confined space, which the fire brigade underpin us for, and involves a day of going round a rig, which is like a building's collapsed and you are crawling through the tightest holes that you never thought that you would be able to get through. And it is quite in the dark, and it's quite intense and it is quite scary actually. But then obviously you've got all your driving skills like normal police officers, and that's it really. So there's just all your marine stuff, all your search stuff, and then all the extra things that we do like CBRN.
You've talked about the training. What sort of technology or equipment do you use in your role?
So equipment wise, again, we have all the marine equipment, boats. So if someone went missing, let's say someone was last seen in Moat Park, for example, and there's some water there. If we were suggesting that we were looking for a person potentially in the water, then we would deploy our smaller boat, which can be inflated from our kit van, and that has an electric engine on it and a sonar equipment. so that we can use sonar to try and locate where we believe the person could be.
Yeah.
It's not 100%, but the whole point of us turning up to a job like that is to reduce the search area, that if we then located somewhere, that we could call in a dive team that could do a specified area. So that sort of kit that we use a lot of drones. So on the team, we have, most of us are drone pilots. That has thermal capability. So if we've got a missing person, we do, a lot of people sadly with dementia go missing. We get deployed a lot to that.
Yeah.
The thermal camera is amazing because you can chuck it up and you can locate people using body heat and body temperature. So kit like that, and we've got a variety of other sort of marine searchy kit that we use. So we're quite lucky with kit, and it does help.
Has there been a job or a moment where you've realised the risk of the job that you do?
Yeah, recently. When we have some downtime, we'll try and be proactive.
Yeah.
So a couple of the officers on my team, stopped a vehicle, had some drugs in there. They got then arrested, and we were asked to go and do the search. Start searching, and then the flatmate comes back, sees us, then runs out the back door, gets in his vehicle, and ends up having to reverse down a long drive. I've then chased after him. Because we were searching, I didn't necessarily have my kit and my radio on, because we were searching.
Yes.
We thought it was a controlled environment. So they've then run down, and we've then ended up he stalls it, and we end up having a bit of a fight for the keys. He's trying to get away, and he doesn't care that I'm leaning in his window trying to get the keys as well. He then drives forward, jolts me forward towards a wall, and I generally thought, that's it, I'm going to be squashed between him and the wall. Wow. I'm using his horn to beep to try and get the attention of my mate, to try and get some help, because I haven't got my radio on me this time. It was so spontaneous.
Yeah.
And in the end, I managed to get the keys off him. He's run off, and we detained him, and he had a load of drugs, and he's been convicted of that. When I was on like the divisional support teams and stuff like that, I was a lot younger, and you feel, you're invincible, aren't you? You're a police officer, you've got a badge, you're good. But actually that moment for me was a bit like, oh yeah, okay, I could have really got hurt. And then you start thinking, well, what about my family? So I got hurt, how am I going to support them? How am I going to do this? Yeah. And ultimately that person didn't care if I got hurt or not. They generally didn't care. That all they wanted to do was get away. Yeah. And it's that realisation that as a police officer, you do these jobs, and there are people out there that will try and hurt you, or they will try and do whatever they can to get away, and it doesn't matter at the time what the consequences are for them, because they're not thinking about that. No. They're just thinking about the moment. No. And for me, it was a wake up call. It was like, right, okay. And I wouldn't necessarily make you think twice about running into the scenario, but I definitely try and be maybe a little bit more aware of, okay, I'm not 18 anymore. But it was a realization, because, and it's happened to other people, other officers, and you hear some horrendous stories about things. Yeah. There's something you need to be conscious of when joining the job, that, people are out there and they will try and hurt you, and there's nothing you can do about it.
And it's important to share those stories as well, so others learn from mistakes perhaps, or our experiences that we make, so that they can hopefully think about, if I was to find myself in that situation again, how would I react, or what would I do, or what could I do differently, for example. So it is important to share.
As police officers, you want to catch the baddies, don't you? That's what it's about. And I think sometimes it's thinking, okay, was that a smart thing, trying to wrestle for the keys? Probably not. But did it get the outcome I wanted? Yes. Could it have gone wrong? Yeah. Yes, to be fair. So it's weighing it and balancing it and thinking, well, actually, let's think about this a little bit more. And but there you go.
Some off the cuff questions now. When you were a child, what was your dream job?
Well, going back to my dyslexia stuff, I was just trying to stay in school, really. I think that was the key goal. I think everyone wanted to be a Top Gear presenter, didn't they? Really, I think that would have been good. I didn't think about joining the police at all. Yeah, I did want to join the military, and that's something, but at the time, it wasn't the right time, and I didn't go down that route. But I think it's something that I wish I would have done. But at the time, I would have loved to have been in the military and done stuff like that.
Well, you've made such a difference in your 15-ish years service, so it's a good job you did join, really, isn't it? Yeah. Tell us something that's on your bucket list.
Oh, that's a good one. bit boring really, but it's going travelling more and going seeing a bit of the world and
That's not
things.
boring.
Yeah. All right, jumping out of an aeroplane would be quite cool. I've always wanted to do a parachute. I think I'm a bit heavy though.
I think you'll be all right. But and if you could sort of tie that in with a trip to Australia and then jump out of a perfectly good aeroplane with a parachute on your back, then well, hey, that's 2 for 1. If you could have any superpower, what would it be?
It's going to be a bit cliche, but I kind of feel not superpower, but with my dyslexia, I generally feel that helps me in the job. We go back to what superpower I want after, because I love Spider-Man and stuff like that. But actually, generally, like, I always thought dyslexia would be a hindrance, but for me, it's actually been quite positive because it's made me think and do things differently to enable me to do it.
Yes.
So actually, for work, superhero thing, I wouldn't change that for the world. But if you're asking me, no, actually, I'd quite like to fly.
Oh, okay.
A bit of Superman, that'd be quite cool.
Nice,
yeah.
Nice. Well, I was listening back to some other podcasts earlier, and we've had Wonder Woman because that officer wanted to fly.
I could have gone Aquaman, couldn't I? But, you know.
Oh dear! And just to go back to one of your earlier points about dyslexia, we have officers officers and staff in the job who are dyslexic, who might be dyspraxic, or have autism or ADHD, for example. And you're right, superpowers, because they approach situations using their skills differently and coming up with solutions that no one has thought of before. Yeah. So definitely not a barrier and absolutely a superpower. One thing you wish the public knew about the role of a police officer?
I think it's kind of like a lot of the stuff we talked about, really.
Yeah.
Like, if you think you're just joining, I said this earlier, as just a police officer, then you need to think harder, because it's not just about that. You're joining. You're not just becoming a police officer. You're becoming a social worker. Yeah. You're becoming a lot of other things. A mentor to people, an inspirational figure to people. It's not just thinking, oh yeah, you're out there catching the bad people. And I think, like, the stuff I talked about, aid, you know, people wouldn't see that sort of stuff doesn't make the news or anything like that. So I think it would be good if the public did see that, a life in, you know, what is it actually like being on a team, not going to the jobs. We've seen enough TV programs of officers going to jobs and stuff like that, but what's it actually like being on a team and seeing that working and how the cogs work. And I think that's what I think the public should see, because then they get a better understanding of how the officers then go and approach and deal with the job, because you're actually seeing the fundamental principles of how a team functions to then going out and dealing with that job.
Yes. And in that team, how, again, going back to that point we made, we're human and we care. And we all are here to do the best job we can. Absolutely. And sometimes you don't get it right.
Yeah.
But often we do get it right, and we do give the best that we can. And that's important to remember as well.
Problem is, a lot of the good stuff, you know, there's some bad things that happen in police, and quite rightly it's put out there in the public domain. But a lot of the good stuff doesn't make good news. So you don't see it. You don't see the hard-working people that sacrifice their lives and done this, but you just don't see that. And I think, going back to that question specifically, that's what the public needs to see.
Yeah. No, and it's not about we do it for recognition and reward. We do it because often it's a calling, and because we want to do it, for sure. What advice would you give to someone thinking about becoming a police officer, and perhaps more specifically about wanting eventually to join the Search and Marine Unit?
So the advice that I would give to someone looking at wanting to join is do your research, see if it is for you. And look at not just the notion of police catching baddies, but look at the other stuff that people do, you know, things regarding mental health, things regarding like the DVI stuff that I was saying that I do, disaster victim identification, because things like that, they're quite big tests of personalities. It is quite a tough job, but it is a good job. And it's just making sure that you know in your head that you can have your shifts missed around. You won't be doing an 8 to 4 job, but the positives are you get that exposure, you get that experience, you get that team camaraderie, if I get that word right.
Yeah.
And that's kind of the advice that I would give to someone is look into it. And then when you do apply, give it your all.
Yeah.
Give it your all and immerse yourself in it, because it's the job that you can do anything. You could come and do search and marine like I do. You could become a detective. You could go down the computing route. There's so many options that you can do. And it's just, enjoy it.
Thank you for taking us through your experiences as a police officer, in particular the Search and Marine Unit, but also sharing with us some stories that have been a privilege, really, to listen to. So thank you.
Thank you for having me.
If you've enjoyed this episode, don't forget to follow us on Instagram, X, Facebook and LinkedIn, where we'll be posting previews of our upcoming episodes. You can watch this episode on our YouTube channel and find out more about the variety of opportunities available by searching Kent Police Careers. See you soon.